Okay, good. So we spent a lot of time in the early chapters talking about just good old international trade, and we had wine for cars or whatever goods we had. But now once we start to enter in money, and we want to do that trade, we need to deal in currencies of the home countries, because if you buy something from China, the dollars are not necessarily money in China. Just like yuan is not money in the United States. What's our definition for money from money in banking or macro class, as you might remember? What does it take for something to be called money? I know we casually think that this stuff's money, but it's not.
Paper currency plus reserves.
Okay, it had some of that. How about even more generically than that? What makes something money?
Store value can be used to exchange for goods and services.
Yeah, the purposes of money. Yep. There's actually three. Medium of exchange. Store value.
Immediacy.
What's the key though to that makes it money? If you're in jail or in prison, what is money? What is money in prison that we've heard about on old movies and stuff? Cigarettes, right? So cigarettes is money in the prison system. What makes it money?
They're valuable.
Okay, they're valuable.
Widely accepted as a form of payment.
Widely accepted as a form of payment. So generally accepted as a means of payment. That's our most general definition of what makes money money. Anything that is generally accepted as a means of payment. So if you're in jail and there's none of this floating around, maybe it's cigarettes. Cigarettes have a store of value, accepted as a medium of exchange, and also serve as a unit of account, is the number 3 that you were looking for. So a number of different things can take on those attributes, and so it doesn't have to be cold hard cash. So if we need to strike a deal with another country on the goods, then we have to figure out what we can trade one for one. And that brings up a number of interesting issues related to international trade and currency to make it happen. Okay, so why? Because first of all, your trading partner wants money. In return for the assets that were sold. These assets could be real or financial assets. Real or financial assets. Give me an example of a real asset. Car. Give me an example of financial asset. A bond, right? So we got these financial assets usually have a rate of return associated with them, right? Some sort of interest rate if we're talking about a bond. And real assets are usually something we can touch and feel. So it could be even physical goods that we're buying, all the plastic stuff from China that we like to buy from them, right? So real or financial assets. And they want money. And money is anything generally accepted as a means of payment. So in money and banking class, we talked about checks being available, checking accounts, the amount of money. Max, you would bring that up with how much money is at the bank and savings accounts and money market accounts and whatever else. Those can also be money that's then transferred via a paper check or whatever. Okay, so that helps motivate things a little bit. So there ends up being kind of two markets, right? You've got the market that's there for the car or for the plastic stuff or for the bond. That has its own supply and demand curve. I like Chinese plastic stuff. I don't like it. I'll supply it at a certain price. So we've got its own individual market for that. But then we also have a number of people participating in the market for currency in order to get that. So it's got this little double whammy to it. In order to do international trade, I not only have some demand and supply of the real good, but I also have a demand and supply of the currencies that are being used to make that good. So it's got this double effect to it. And here is that market. So let me just put up a supply and demand curve. And over here, let's measure the quantity of yuan. And that's not really the symbol for yuan, but the Chinese currency yuan. And if this is the quantity of their currency, how would we express the price of their currency? In other words, if we're Americans thinking about doing business in China, how do we want to think of what the price of a yuan is?
How much it costs
In terms of our dollars, good. So that is precisely what the exchange rate is. So the price of what's 1 yuan going to cost me? It's going to cost me a certain amount of dollars for every yuan. Right? Maybe it's $10 per yuan, maybe it's something else. So it's dollars per yuan. And that is the nominal exchange rate. So we're going to use a cap R. I'm just being consistent with your textbook. Cap R subscript N for the nominal exchange rate. So Rn equals the nominal exchange rate.
Isn't the yuan like a capital Y and it has 2 bars?
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah, we can, if you want to throw a couple bars through it. Yeah, I think there might even be, maybe on the stem, I can't remember if it's on the, I think if you do a cap Y, but yeah, we can make it look a little goofy just for fun. And some sort of foreign, units of foreign currency. All right, so nominal exchange rate. So let's say that it takes, let's say that it takes, how about 0.16 of a dollar to buy 1 yuan. Let's call that point A. Then let's also take a new demand curve and a new supply curve, and I just want to kind of intentionally stack this above here. So we can call this S1 and D1. Maybe we should use 1 and 2. I've kind of tried over the years to get away from the 0 and the 1. I don't know why, but it seems like more textbooks do it that way. So 1, 2, and 1, 2. And that reflects an exchange rate of 0.2. If we move from point A to point B, has the dollar appreciated or depreciated? Depreciated. Okay. So why do you say that? Okay, it costs more to get 1. Right? So the dollar's gone down in value. If we think about how many dollars does it take me to buy 1 yuan, it used to cost me 16 cents. Now it costs me 20 cents. Right? So the yuan has appreciated. The dollar has depreciated. Okay, so So at point A, the exchange rate was 16 cents. And at point B, the nominal exchange rate was 20 cents. Therefore, we had, I'm going to do this a little backwards on you, yuan appreciation or dollar depreciation. The reason I flip-flopped you from the way we talked about it is I wanted to point out this, that whatever currency you're measuring down here, if it goes up, it's an appreciation of that currency. So that kind of flows nicely with the word appreciation going up in value, that this thing going up means that there was an appreciation of that. And then because we're just looking at one currency versus the other, if one goes up, the other has to be going down. So then you automatically know, oh yeah, that's dollar depreciation. And so we have to play a little bit of mental gymnastics going back and forth on that. All right, is everybody clear so far? All right. So what is the exchange rate in terms of dollars? In terms of yuan. So what is the inverse of Rn? What is the inverse of Rn? So let's take at point B. What does that equal to? 5, right? So we've got 5. If we take the inverse of this, so if Rn equals 0.2, which is equal to 2 tenths, and that's 2, we can put it in terms of dollars per yuan. All I'm trying to do with the flipping them over and taking the inverse is expressing it in terms of the other currency. So that inverse makes this 10 divided by 2, which is our 5. Flip over the yuan per dollar. And so now I've got this as the exchange rate is 5 yuan per dollar. So we can go back and forth expressing one currency as this is the price of the yuan is 0.2, or the price of the dollar in terms of yuan would be 5 yuan per dollar. Now, just for fun, what is the inverse of the 0.16? I'm not going to write this one down, but 1 divided by 0.16, 6.25, you done? So if we were measuring dollars down here, right, because now if we were flipping it around, we went from 5 to 6.25, that would have been appreciation of the dollar, depreciation of the yen. Okay, so let's hit the shifters. So demand shifters. So number 1 on the demand shifter list. If there's an increase in the rest of the world's demand for U.S. exports, so a change in the rest of the world's demand, I'm going to case this in terms of the United States just to hopefully keep our brains straight. A change in the rest of the world's demand for U.S. exports. They want more of our stuff or they want less of our stuff. So we're going to call this ID star. the import demand of the other country. So we'll kind of continue on with this star notation denotes foreign country, just like we did in the past. So this is import demand of the foreign country. So if there's an increase in the foreign country's demand for U.S. stuff, they want more of our stuff, ID star, how does that trickle in to the exchange market? How does that, what's that?
Increases the demand.
Okay, so in order to buy U.S. goods, they need U.S. dollars, right? So there's an increase in the demand for the currency. And so there's an increase in demand for that currency in general terms. And will that lead to appreciation or depreciation of the currency? Appreciation. There'll be an increase in the exchange rate. So over in this picture, if we've got the yuan, and we're Americans and we like their plastic stuff, and we demand more of their plastic stuff. In order to get their plastic stuff, we need to increase our demand for yuan. So we're going to go on the market and buy more yuan, and that's going to tend to drive up their currency, which on the flip side would drive down our currency. Okay. So that's on the demand side. Our first one on the demand side. Number two is a change in the U.S. interest rate differential. Change in the U.S. and I could just kind of, maybe I should do this while I'm trying to get your brains engaged with this, but this is kind of like the domestic, because if I'm actually in this market, I'm talking about China, right? So this is the change in the demand for China's exports on the example that we just went through, or the change in the domestic, and this is the way you'll see it in your book, whatever the domestic country's interest rate differential. So bear with me on the U.S. differential. What is that? We're going to take the interest rates on financial instruments and compare them. So if I take the interest rate in the United States and subtract the interest rate around the globe, that is the U.S. interest rate differential. So take, for example, government bonds. And maybe we're comparing Germany and the United States. If the U.S. interest rate is 7% and German interest rate is 6%, and people around the globe feel like Germans are pretty good about paying their bills, Americans are pretty good about paying the bills, if the level of risk is the same across them, right, then we have an existing differential on our expectations of what those two financial instruments are going to do. Now, if there's an increase in this differential, which can come about from two different places, how can this expression in the brackets go up? Good. Okay, now hold on. I want to take that in two steps. Domestic interest rate gets bigger, and what's true about this one? For one event. That stays the same, maybe gets smaller, right? So let's just hold it fixed. So let's do the ceteris paribus thing that we like to do in economics. If this gets bigger, ceteris paribus, then this expression gets bigger. And then what's the other one that could happen? This one gets smaller, right? So foreign interest rate gets smaller, ceteris paribus. This one holds constant, which kind of covers the two scenarios you're looking at. So in one shot here, we have a variable that captures kind of the difference in around the globe with interest rates. Remember, that's our underlying asset that we're interested in, because we're interested in both real and financial assets. So we covered the real part with shifter number 1, thinking about the actual exports, underlying exports and imports of the real goods. And now we're thinking about how that might work in the financial markets. So if this thing goes up one way or the other, what happens in the exchange market?
Higher interest rate decreases the demand for that currency, which leads to depreciation of that.
Okay, everybody agree with that? An increase in this, so let's just follow it through with the first situation we did. U.S. interest rates go up, this one holds constant. So would we want to demand less or more?
Does it make it more expensive with the interest rate? People are going to want more U.S. dollars because they're going to be investing in U.S.-based foreign assets.
Okay, why?
Because the interest rates are higher.
Okay, so it's just, you're kind of on the right track. Where this one kind of gets a little bit slippery is you got to think about what's happening like right now versus what we expect to happen in terms of if interest rates go up in the United States, holding risk constant, U.S. assets look more attractive than foreign assets, right? So now all of a sudden, ooh, I'm going to jump on some of those Obama bonds, man. They look good. In order to buy Obama bonds, I need to have some American currency. So I jump into the currency market, and that leads to an increase in demand for American dollars so that they can go buy American financial assets, and leads to appreciation or depreciation of the dollar. Appreciation again, if we're thinking in terms of the dollar. So an increase in RN, R, or appreciation, which is what went on here too.
So is the domestic market on horizontal axis most of the time?
It's whatever we're measuring here, yes. So if we put on our China cap, then we'd be looking at Chinese interest rate differential. The Chinese interest rate goes up because they're the unstarred one, they're the domestic country now, and then we tell the same story, yes. And I don't know if it'd be helpful or not for you guys to, maybe it would be. I was hesitating whether I wanted to do this, but we talked about it, so I might as well do it. If we measure the quantity of dollars, the reason I hesitated, and I'll just put the little disclaimer on here of why. Quantity of dollars, and then we've got the exchange rate over here, but now this would be in yuan per dollar, right? We're just flipping things around. We have our own supply and demand. Your textbook does not do this picture. Each textbook in international finance has to kind of, they usually pick, I'm going to do it this way or I'm going to do it this way. And that's why, actually, when we had macroeconomics, we talked about the dollar rather than the other country. So, book does not show this.
So it's just the opposite of bigger picture.
It's just the opposite, yeah. They're kind of mirror reflections, so you kind of have to do one or the other. I think it's maybe kind of helpful to see that as you tell different stories, but so when this goes up, that one's going down, and yeah. All right. Anything else there?
So what would be the, like if you were to do the dotted line out to the side, would that be like the break in the middle of that 5?
Right here?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, if I'm tying it to this picture, then yeah, we could make it equivalent to, well, it'd be this one. If I did the little AB thing here, it was actually depreciation. I don't know, I'm hesitating whether we want to do this or not, but yes. So we had, what was it, 6.25 and 5. was this inverse thing that we calculated. Okay. Number 3, our last one, is exchange rate expectations. So if there's an increase in the expected exchange rate, so if we're expecting the dollar to appreciate in the future, do we want to hold dollars or hold yuan? All right, we want to hold, buy low, sell high, right? So if we're going to hold dollars, that's going to lead to an increase in the demand for dollars, right? Where essentially, not only are you wanting to hold the ones you got, but you might want to buy more of them. So buy low, sell high, and again, that would lead to an increase in the nominal exchange rate. So we'll use this notation. I think we've used it a little bit in here, but I like to just put this. There's a couple different ways to do expectations. That's one of them. So this is the expected exchange rate. Sometimes we might do it this way with this is another mathematical way to show the expected exchange rate. So either kind of raising it to the E or doing it that way. Expected future exchange rate.
What would increase that?
So this is, let me put this one comment here. Buy low and sell high. This is kind of the good old-fashioned way of making money. I think the dollar is going to go up in value. I think a classic car is going to go up in value. If I think that the 69 Camaro is going to go up in value, that it's really undervalued right now, I buy it now and I hold on to that sucker for 5 years, and then I sell it later. If I think the currency is going to go up in value, buy that currency, hold it, sell it later for profit. Okay? What was your question?
What would make people believe that the expected value is going to go up?
Oh, that's a good question. So I'd say a lot of the times it could be government policies. If they change what they're doing, if there's a new person in town that's going to do things differently, like in Japan, they just started pursuing different types of monetary policy, then that could change the future valuation of the yen. And then just as important would probably be what's happening in the country. So if somebody goes into a country and takes them by force, not that this happens in today's day and age, but remember how the Ukraine thing, right? So if there's actually a war going on or some other sort of events, then that could cause people to change their expectations about the currency. All right. Kind of like expectations with price. You know, if Steve Jobs dies, what do we think is going to happen to Apple's stock? You know, it's going to go up, it's going to go down. You know, and people change their behavior based on the real events that are happening, but they don't know them with certainty either. Okay, anything else? All right, supply shifters on the other side of the market. This market is kind of weird in that you're going to see some similarities between supply and demand. They're going to look suspiciously similar to each other. So supply shifters in the foreign exchange market. Number one, if there's a change in import demand.
ID star or just ID?
Regular ID now. So we're going to think about the U.S. Imports, or we can phrase it that way. So if there's a decrease in import demand, what's going to happen to the supply of dollars? So if we're decreasing our imports of other are imports of other countries. So now I'm back on this being the US, so the demand for plastic stuff. If our demand for foreign exports goes down, what happens to the supply of dollars going to the foreign exchange market? We're going to decrease, right? So we're not going to bring as many dollars because we're not buying we don't need yuan anymore because we're not buying their stuff. And so that'll cause a decrease in supply, which then is an increase in the value of the currency. And so the idea with this one is that we just want to keep our dollars. We don't need yuan if we're thinking in terms of the United States here. All right. Number 2 is a change in the interest rate differential. If there's an increase in the interest rate differential, same thing I did on demand, we'll just kind of have a different cap on now. We're thinking if US assets look more attractive relative to foreign assets, how is that going to affect the supply of US dollars on the foreign exchange market? They're going to go down, right? So US assets look more attractive, so I'm not going to buy as many German bonds or other bonds. So that's going to be a decrease in the supply of the currency, causing an increase in the exchange rate, appreciation of the currency. And then number 3, what if there's an increase in the expected value, expected future value? We're expecting appreciation now that the dollar's going to go up. What am I going to do with my supply of dollars to the market? Am I going to supply more or less? Less, right? I'm expecting the dollar to go up in value. Should I get rid of my dollars? No, I should hold on to them. So I'm going to bring less dollars to the market, and that will cause an increase in the exchange rate. So number 2 and 3, the key point with this is that numbers 2 and 3 are the same for supply and demand, which is very strange. We've really almost never seen that in any other thing, and the reason is what we're doing for one, we wouldn't do to the other, and so we've only got kind of this one-to-one relationship.
All those that exchanging going up is appreciating the value of the dollar.
Here, in the story I told, this would be the value of the dollar, the way I was verbalizing it. Now, if we think about it, if I'm China, and this is the Chinese interest rate differential, China versus Germany, then a Chinese bond that looks more attractive is going to cause a decrease in the supply of yuan and an appreciation of the yuan. Okay? All right. We'll see you guys on Wednesday.
So, nothing